Welcome into episode 26 of the G5 Hive, where we aim to bring you all the honey in G5 college football. I am your host, Justice, joined by my co-host, Luke. How you doing tonight, Luke?
Pretty good. If I sound out of breath, just heard my dog making all sort of new puppy-ish, making all sorts of commotion up there. I'm like, what the heck is going on? It looks like a tornado up there. I'm like, all right, you're going in your kennel. I'm going to sort this stuff out later. I don't have time to go through all this.
Puppies and kids, man. Puppies and kids. It's always never a dull moment.
No, not at all. How about you? How are things?
Things are going good. The family was home all day, no school.
Yes.
President's Day, so that was a little different on a Monday. But yeah, everything's going good. I went and saw the doctor today about my Achilles. He said I can come out of the boot, but I have to go to physical therapy for 3 more weeks. So
Gotcha.
good news,
Not the
so
worst
good
case.
news. Yeah. So I was happy. At least I don't have to wear the boot around. I've been in the boot for almost a month now, I guess. All right, so tonight we are going to finish up our talk about the Mountain West. We covered was it 7 teams, I think, last week. We got 7 more to do this week. But before we get into that, we do have some news and notes to share. This past week, I shared something with Luke that I wanted to read to everybody. I just thought it was kind of cool. It was a Valentine's Day poem. About Ashton Jeanty. So it came out, I guess, Wednesday? And it says, hello, Bronco Nation. As we will be making a huge push for Ashton Jeanty and his Heisman campaign this upcoming year, here's a fun little poem in honor of Valentine's Day. Roses are red, violets are blue. Jeanty is a beast. There's only one number 2. 2023, Ashton ran for 1,347 yards while hurdling guys on the blue, crossing the end zone 14 times, and also catching some sweet dimes. Heisman 2024 is in his reach, but of course with Bronco Nation, we must all preach. Ashton Jeanty is a complete sensation. Roses are red, violets are blue. Bronco Nation, we bleed blue.
I mean, perfect time for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, to me, I like the first one's best, but Ashton Jeanty is a beast. Running back 1 and CFF, we talked about it last week. Not sure. I mean, I guess you can make an argument for Ollie Gordon, but I don't know that I see anyone else in that conversation besides them two. And personally, for me, it's Jeanty given his receiving work. I haven't looked at Jared's other mocks to see who was 1-1. I know in the one that we did, Jeanty was the 1-1, and Ollie Gordon was with a 1-2. I would expect that's kind of they might flip, but those are probably the top 2 guys in most drafts at this point.
Yeah, I would assume it's going to be Jeanty. Yeah, I can't blame him if it is Ollie Gordon, but anyways, yeah. I can't wait for all of the Heisman talk and really hope that Ashton gets a bigger workload, but also they're going to be in that running for the G5 top team, and you definitely want your guys healthy there for the end of the season. So I could see some quote-unquote load management at some of these games that they might, especially given how much they've added to their team, might get a little bit of rest here, maybe halfway through the third quarter or so.
Yeah, definitely possible. Speaking about Boise State, we covered Boise State last week, but wanted to share some more coaching news with Boise State. Head coach Spencer Danielson is considering pushing spring practice back a week or so to ensure he has ample time to make the best decision on who should be the Broncos' new offensive coordinator, as their old offensive coordinator went to be the OC at Kentucky. Some of the things he is looking for, He wants an explosive attacking offense and someone that has shown to be a true QB developer. The particular article that I read, the only candidates that I mentioned were internal candidates mentioned by Spencer Danielson, and that was Matt Miller, the wide receiver coach. He was the offensive coordinator at Montana State in 2018 and 2019. And Nate Potter, who is the running back and tight end coach, but this year he was the co-OC. Some other names that I've heard in speculation, Eric Kiesau. He is an offensive analyst at Florida. He was at Boise for 4 years, from 2017 to 2020, in a variety of roles, including offensive coordinator. Lee Marks, the running back coach at Washington the last 2 seasons. He was a Boise running back and special teams coach from 2014 to 2018. And this was probably kind of out there, but, I figured I'd mention it. Rudy Carlton. He's currently a high school coach. He coached at Azusa Pacific with Danielson, where he was the OC for 10 seasons. And he was also the coach at West Florida Division II when Austin Reed was there, before Austin Reed went to Western Kentucky.
Another piece of news, I didn't put it in the show sheet, but I didn't see if it was final or not, but Georgia State was expected to make their interim head football coach named, and that was going to be their strength and conditioning coach, Mike.
Yeah.
Was it Siriano?
I don't remember, but yes, they did name him the interim coach, and then they also basically indefinitely postponed spring practice.
Which I've got a couple thoughts around that. Having your strength and conditioning coach, like, what better person in these circumstances that they're in? He's been with them all off season so far. Being able to do those things that head coaches can't. He sets the tone in the weight room. He knows, who's there to work, who's not. And typically, not all the time, but a lot of times, like, those strength and conditioning coaches are kind of like how your team responds or how they are built on the football field, whether they're soft, whether they're hard hitting, whatever it is. I feel like the strength and conditioning coach has a lot to do with that. So I think, given the circumstances that Georgia State is in, I feel like if he ends up having to coach during the season, I think that's good. But I think he'll be more of a CEO head coach than actually like X's and O's. But yeah, I think that's good
if he gets named the permanent head coach. Before we get to some more spring practice stuff, one other interesting tidbit that I saw this past week. Louisiana quarterback Zion Chris, formerly of Louisiana, and now he's at Houston. And obviously in Louisiana, he was in the G5. He was the only FBS quarterback with a completion of 60 or more air yards this past season. So just thought that was interesting, pretty cool for the G5. Obviously now he's moved on to bigger and better things in the Big 12 with Houston, and it'll be an interesting battle between him and Donovan Smith, I think, right, to see who's gonna be the quarterback of that team.
Yeah, Donovan Smith definitely had his ups and downs this last year, and we'll see how that goes. But just like with many G5 teams, poaching players or getting players poached, as it all becomes too much, we will probably talk about that in another podcast at some point.
Yeah. So some spring practice stuff. Hawaii, matter of fact, their spring game is coming up on February 22nd. Their practices started January 29th. They seem to be always be the first and the earliest every season. Liberty spring practice started February 9th. Their spring game is slated for March 2nd. Air Force started spring practice just last week, February 12th, with a March 12th game. And then Appalachian State, Their practice also started February 12th, but as we mentioned last week, they do not or they will not have a quote spring game this year for Appalachian State. And kind of moving forward as we get to the weeks where teams are going to start practice, we'll mention that. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, last week we kind of covered the top 7 teams in the Mountain West. Tonight we're going to cover the rest of the teams in the Mountain West, as well as the 2 teams kind of in no man's land, so to speak. The Pac-2. We kind of lump those teams in here with the Mountain West because they're not Power 5 anymore. Matter of fact, it's not even called the Power 5. It's the P4, right? So
I don't know. There's been some conversation. Did you see 2 weeks ago? There's a vote on the playoffs and how it was going to be the 6v6 or the 5v7 for who gets the playoffs berths. Did you see this?
I didn't, but I know that they passed a rule that says you have to have, I thought, 8 teams to be able to have an automatic bid. So that kind of excludes those 2 teams from an automatic bid.
So I don't know if there was something else to it, but I feel like there was a deal where Washington, to change the format to take away the automatic bids, they had to have a unanimous vote, and Washington State was the team that said no to it. So there is a chance that
yeah, but I think you're right. But for the vote to say they have to have 8 conference members, I don't think they had to be unanimous. I think that that just had to be a majority.
Because when it comes to bowl season, all of the former Pac-12 teams are still considered Pac-12 teams. So there is a chance that you have like a USC versus Iowa. Granted, it's not going to be in the Rose Bowl because that'll be a playoff game. But those 2 teams could play in a bowl game because all of the former Pac-12 teams are going to be considered Pac-12. So there's a chance that some Big Tens. So yeah, that was something that happened 2 weeks ago, a week ago, something like that. But yeah, I still don't really know about the automatic berth. Yeah, I haven't really figured that out, but I did hear that or read that. So I'll try to figure out more on that before our next show. But that was something interesting.
All right, so we'll dive right into it. Our first team up this week is the San Diego State Aztecs.
All right, coaching changes. Out is head coach Brady Hoke or Hokie, to be determined where he's going. OC Ryan Lindley out. He is now the senior offensive analyst for the team, so he's out, but he's there. DC Kurt Maddox, to be determined. He still lives in San Diego, and it says that he's the DC on Twitter, but they did hire a new DC, so maybe the guy just doesn't update his Twitter. That's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah,
so
that's probably the likely choice there.
Yeah. So in comes head coach Sean Lewis, last the OC QB coach for Colorado and the head coach at Kent State from 2018 to 2022. New DC is Eric Schmidt. He will also coach the linebackers as well. He spent the last 2 seasons at the University of Washington as a special teams coordinator and coach of the edge players. What does Sean Lewis mean for San Diego State? Well, I think it means a lot of really good things when it comes to the
offense and fantasy.
Yep, offense, fantasy. You want wide receiver 1. So I went and I dug into what this team is going to look like. So I looked at Sean Lewis's stats for 2018 to 22 when he was the head coach at Kent State. Points per game, he averages 32.86. Pass to run, 30.4 passes per game to 44.3 rushes per game. Guy likes to run the ball. Even though he does pass the ball a little bit less than running, his wide receiver ones are averaging 55 receptions a year for 803 yards, 7 touchdowns in a PPR league. That is good for 17.67 points per game. Because games wise, their wide receiver ones usually average 10 to 11 games a year. So getting 17, 18 points per game out of your wide receiver one, not bad. Quarterback wise, quarterback one, or I guess the quarterback averages 24.6 points per game in a 6-point passing touchdown league. His quarterbacks average 528.4 rushing yards a year and 7 touchdowns. So that is good in itself. And then the RB1, like I said, they like to run the ball on average 44 times a game. He's going to have a split. His RB1 is going to get roughly 60% of the workload. The RB2 is going to get roughly 30%, and then you'll have a smattering of guys eating up the last 10%. And of those guys, you're going to get close to 18 opportunities a game from your RB1, and that'll get you right around 16 points per game. So not a lot of usage in the receiving game. They do average a half to 1 reception a game, not a lot. So it's just mainly going to be running the ball. But if you give me 18 opportunities a game, I'm feeling pretty good. And I don't think anybody in this offense is on a lot of people's radar. But what guys, I mean, I gave you a lot of stats, but what does that really mean? Justice, who's leaving? Who's coming? Who can we put to these numbers?
So at quarterback, they lose Jalen Maiden, who is out of eligibility. Wide receiver Raphael Williams Jr. is off to Pittsburgh. Wide receiver Breon Penny is in the portal with no destination as of yet. Tight end Mark Redmond is off to Louisville. And they lose their top 2 offensive linemen in terms of snaps from a season ago. But don't fear, they got plenty of help coming in through the portal. They're bringing in quarterback A.J. Duffy coming over from Florida State. Wide receiver Jerry McClure coming from UCLA. Wide receiver Lewis Brown IV, Colorado State. Wide receiver Jashawn Polk from West Virginia, who was at Kent State when Sean Lewis was the head coach there. Wide receiver Nate Bennett coming over from FCS Portland State. Tight ends Michael Harrison coming from Colorado and Jude Wolf coming from USC. Based on who is returning at quarterback, I got to, and bringing in A.J. Duffy, got to believe A.J. Duffy is going to be QB1 for San Diego State. To start the season at least. He's going to get the first crack, I got to believe, right? I don't know who else. They had a kid there, and he's got 3 names. He was thought of. He was a highly thought of freshman, but Sean Lewis doesn't really have any ties to him. Sean Lewis, obviously recruited A.J. Duffy. Got to believe A.J. Duffy's going to at least get the first crack at being the man for quarterback. Running back. So Luke and I were talking before the show. It's kind of 2 running backs. There was, 2 running backs kind of fit the mold, and they were the top 2 running backs last year. But they might flip based, just if we were strictly to look at the height and weight of Lewis's RB1 and RB2. So a season ago, Jalen Armstead was their leading rusher, and Keenan Kristen was their second leading rusher. So I guess you could make the argument Armstead was RB1, Kristen was RB2. If we want to follow the kind of height weight scenarios that Lewis has seemed to favor with his running backs, it would seem that those 2 are going to flip, with Kristen potentially being the RB1 and Jalen Armstead being the RB2. Armstead is the bigger of the two. Kristen is the smaller. I think Armstead's 215 pounds. Kristen's around 190. Wide receivers, like I said, they bring in quite a bit there. The leading returning receiver is Mekhi Shaw, who caught 27 balls on 41 targets for 375 yards and 2 touchdowns. But my personal opinion, and again, Luke and I talking beforehand, Lewis Brown IV, I think, will be the wide receiver 1 in this offense for Sean Lewis. One thing I don't really remember and is he was never really a big tight end guy, right? Is that right, Luke?
Right. Yeah, there's not a lot going on tight end wise. So that is something that is interesting.
Yeah, because he brought in Harrison, and Harrison was kind of a hybrid.
Which makes me think he's going to be one of those guys
be a receiver, outside
he'll
receiver.
be a receiver, but probably has eligibility
as a
in the tight end.
It's a good point because he wasn't really, he was definitely at Colorado. He wasn't a blocking tight end, right? He was, tall, skinny guy. He's, definitely a receiving option. So that's an excellent point, Luke, that he could be a tight end and title only, as our friend Eric Froton refers to him as
Tito.
He's a T. He could definitely be a Tito this coming year. Matter of fact, let's see what he's. I was going to look to see what he's listed as.
Because Fantrax will go with whatever the school has them listed as.
That's what I'm looking right now. So looks like he's not enrolled yet. He's not. He's not on their roster currently. And this
he was a pretty early transfer, so maybe there's something going on with semesters, possibly, or
I don't know. Like I said, I just searched. I just searched their roster, and Harrison doesn't come up. So Jude Wolf, the other transfer, is listed as a tight end. But yeah, Harrison is not on their roster yet. So, like I said, maybe he's going to finishing out the year at Colorado before he comes over. So definitely something to kind of pay attention to for fantasy purposes. All right. Next up, San Jose State.
All right. San Jose State coaching changes out. Goes Brent Brennan. He now is the head coach over at Arizona. OC Kevin McGivern. He is now the wide receiver and passing game coordinator for the team. So while he is out, he's not actually out, just moving to a different role. In comes head coach. I'm gonna butcher this last name, but Kevin Ken. What did I say? Ken. Niumatullo. Longtime Navy head coach, great guy by all accounts. From 2007 to 2022, comes in at UCLA in 2023 as the director of leadership. Sounds like guys at Navy loved him. Heard reports even at UCLA in 2023 that he had guys from old Navy teams together for Christmas and whatnot. But also, he also said he's not going to be bringing that Navy midshipman type offense to San Jose State. So no triple option or anything. So leads me to believe that the brains behind the offense will be of the OC Craig Sutzman, who's the inventor of the spread and shred offense, which he used in 2023 as a wide receiver and passing game coordinator at Texas State. Texas State-wise, last year they averaged 36.7 points per game, passing at 33 times a game, rushing at 40.7. So while he does have this spread and shred offense, they ran the ball more than they did throw the ball. Granted, TJ Finley ran the ball quite a bit, but I would assume that is what we're going to get here with San Jose State. Probably a lot more throwing the ball. Who is leaving and who's coming?
So, unfortunately for San Jose State, quarterback Chevin Cordero is out of eligibility. He was someone I always liked in fantasy. I had him in several leagues. Running back Kyrie Robinson is also out of eligibility. Running back Quali Conley entered the portal and followed the head coach over to Arizona. Wide receiver Charles Ross left and went to Ohio. Tight end Dominic Mazziotti left and went to UMass. And they also lose their top 4 offensive linemen. They do bring some help in through the portal. They got quarterback Emmett Brown coming over from Washington State, running back Floyd Chalk IV from Grambling State, and wide receiver Trayshawn Hurry coming over from Weber State. Returning at quarterback is Jay Butterfield, formerly of Oregon. So my guess is going to be a battle between Butterfield and Emmett Brown to kind of see who's going to lead this offense. You can't glean too much from their stats from last year. Jay Butterfield was 7 for 11 for 80 yards and a touchdown. Emmett Brown was 2 for 4 for 14 yards. Let's see. Either of them have any rushing stats. Jay Butterfield had 2 rushes for -2 yards, but Emmett Brown didn't have any last year at Washington State. The running back room, with losing Conley and Robinson, definitely is wide open. In addition to Floyd Chalk IV coming in, they still have freshman Jabari Bates and freshman Caden Collins returning, who did log some stats last year. Floyd Chalk at Grambling State had 696 yards for 9 touchdowns on 123 attempts. Just based on experience, you would think maybe he has an edge, but he is making a step up from the FCS. Looking at receiver, their leading receiver does return in Nick Nash, 48 catches on 81 targets, 728 yards, and 8 touchdowns last year. He does return, and then as I mentioned, Trayshawn Hurry, who's coming in from Weber State last year as a freshman, had 29 catches for 384 yards and 1 touchdown. Sam Olsen also returns at tight end. Last season, he had 22 catches, 35 on 35 targets for 310 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Who was their wide receiver? I think he was getting hyped up pretty big this last year. That he was hurt most of the year. Justin, does that sound Lockhart?
Lockhart, yes.
He would probably be back, right?
Because that's a good question. I don't.
he didn't
have any production, but yeah.
So that
let's see if I can find their roster real quick.
That's a name that I guess I would be keeping an eye on because he was supposed to do great things. I think he maybe had a hand injury or something.
Yeah, something with his arm,
or maybe his shoulder. I can't remember, but yeah.
But yeah, they don't have their 2024 roster up yet. It looks like
that'd be a name I think I would have an eye on. I would assume he has a red shirt. But
if anything, he at least has a medical red shirt, right? I mean, I'm just searching Twitter real quick to see if there's anything new about Justin Lockhart, but I don't. Nothing's coming up really fast. So that's a good call. I think a lot of people probably forgot about Justin Lockhart. Definitely be looking for him to see. Well, here we go. I found something. So it looks like he was signed by their NIL.
Okay.
And he posted something January 30th about proud to be a blue and gold NIL athlete. So yeah, It looks like he will be back with at San Jose State. So that's a good call, Luke. A lot of people have probably forgotten about Justin Lockhart.
Yeah, because definitely one of those guys that you could fall through the crack because he was, I think, a senior this last year. So yeah, no production, so I think an easy guy for people to forget. But I think he
Absolutely.
come back and tear stuff up based on we'll see who the quarterback ends up being. UNLV Rebels. This one's pretty easy. I like these ones. Coaching changes none. Barry Odom and the crew are trying to run it back here for year 2. Let's see how this one goes. Who do we got leaving and coming for this year?
So they lose quarterback Jaden Maivia. He is off to USC.
To Georgia, to USC,
To
back to
Georgia.
Georgia. I don't know. I don't know where he's going. Yeah, that was quite the off-season spectacle, I guess. Watching that.
Yeah, and who was it? Was it DJU's dad was kind of like acting like his agent or something? Am I remembering
I
that
don't know,
correctly?
but it wouldn't surprise me because I feel like his dad is representing a lot of people.
Running back Courtney Reese is off to Bethune-Cookman, and running back Vincent Davis is out of eligibility. They bring in a lot of help on the offensive side. They're bringing quarterback Matt Sluka over from Holy Cross, quarterback Haji Malik Williams from Campbell, running back Michael Allen from NC State, running back Christian Moore from Kansas State, running back Kylan James from Central Arkansas, and wide receiver Casey Kane from Texas. So, in addition to Saluka and Haji Malik Williams coming in, Doug Brumfield is still there at quarterback. But I got to believe like they brought these two guys in. It's going to be one of these two guys. I think my gut tells me it's going to be Matt Saluka. Saluka last season was 122 for 197 attempts, 122 completions, 1,723 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Are you ready for this? This is what he did on the ground.
Yep.
186 attempts, 1,243 yards rushing for 9 touchdowns. I think he's going to give them that ground game edge, and so I think he was brought in to be the starter. Obviously, it's going to be a competition. I don't doubt that, but I just feel like he's the one. I think, or maybe I want him to be the one, right? From I'll get all those rushing stats. Now, Haji Malik Williams, had a great season as well. 222 completions, 318 attempts, 2,448 yards, 18 passing touchdowns, 8 interceptions. On the ground, 86 attempts, 249 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So he also, they both offer some rushing upside. Obviously, Saluka's upside is based on last year's statistics anyway, is a lot higher. Running back, they do return freshman Jaden Thomas, who led them last season with 12 touchdowns. He was second on 108 attempts. But this just to me, it looks like a mess at running back. They got Thomas returning. They brought in, the 3 transfers, and Michael Allen, Christian Moore, and Kylan James. So for me personally, I'm probably staying away from the backfield from a fantasy perspective.
I definitely like. There's a lot I liked about Michael Allen coming out of high school. So
I mean, just from a recruiting standpoint, right? He has to be the highest one. But will he get featured here at UNLV? I don't know. Last year they rotated a lot. Other than Jaden Thomas getting he was kind of the goal line guy, which is kind of odd because he's not very big, but for whatever reason he was kind of the guy at the goal line. They do return their top 2 receivers, and Ricky White and Jacob DeJesus. Ricky White had 88 catches on 135 targets for 1,483 yards and 8 touchdowns. Jacob DeJesus had 60 catches on 80 targets for 606 yards and 2 touchdowns. One thing I did want to mention about incoming transfer Kylan James, he caught the ball a lot last season. He had 48 catches, 426 yards, and 4 touchdowns for Central Arkansas. So maybe that's kind of a role he's going to carve out for himself on this offense, kind of be the pass catching guy.
I mean, are we sure that Ricky White is coming back? I mean, rumors are he's being courted by Notre Dame, but his dad says definitely not happening.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
we'll see how the spring window goes.
Until something official is out there, like we gotta assume he's coming back for now, right? That's all we can do. Offensive line, they should be in okay shape. They do lose 2 of their top offensive linemen in terms of snaps. The guys that are number 2 and number 3. So they got to replace those 2 guys. But overall, I think the offensive line should be okay. And to me, like the biggest thing I think I'm watching is who's going to win that quarterback job, because you're gonna get them like for free in drafts. I feel like.
Yep.
And it could potentially pay off huge dividends for sure. All right, moving on to Utah State.
All right, Utah State, DC coaching change. Joe is it Cathune, fired, and in comes Nate Drilling. He was the new Mexico State DC in 2022 and 2023. That's pretty much the only changes. So from an offensive standpoint, Utah State likes to spread the ball out, throw the ball. They were great for fantasy, but those it was Royals, and why am I blanking on the other name that was on the outsider? Justice, who's that? Royals and who else?
Terrell Vaughn.
Terrell Vaughn. That they're big for this Utah State team. And Royals comes back, and I'm really excited to see how Utah State builds on last year. It seemed like a different team like the second half of the season compared to the first half of the season. Games in that second half of the season, it was just like, hey, we know we can throw the ball a lot, and it was a lot of just fast 3 and outs. That then the second half they like really got clicking. So we'll see if they can put it together for 2 halves this year. But Justice, let me know who is leaving and who's coming in.
So they do lose quarterback Levi Williams, who is not out of eligibility, but he is leaving. We talked about this at the end of last season. He wants to be a Navy SEAL, right? Yep. I think it was what it was. He wants to be a Navy SEAL. So good on Levi Williams. The aforementioned wide receiver Terrell Vaughn is out of eligibility. They lose 6 offensive linemen, 4 of their top 7 guys in terms of snaps, but their top 3 guys do return. So, not too concerned, but, they do have some replacements they have to do for along their offensive line. Who is coming in? They bring in 2 quarterbacks from the Power 5. Bryson Barnes, a.k.a. the Pig Farmer, is coming over from Utah. And then someone near and dear to Luke's heart.
I don't know about that.
Spencer Petras is coming over from Iowa. I don't. These seem odd to me, and the reason why they seem odd is they return. Cooper Lagasse returns. McKay Hillstead returns. Like I can see bringing Petras in. That kind of makes some sense. Because I don't think he's being brought in to be a starter. I think he is being brought in for depth.
But Bryson Barnes did pretty good things there for Utah this year.
Yeah,
so
that's the one
interesting.
That's the one that kind of surprised me a little bit, because it was later too. It was later in the portal when he came in. They'd already had Petras at that point. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting QB battle, I think, between Barnes, Cooper Lagasse, and McKay Hillstead to kind of see who gets the reins to this Utah State offense.
Well, and that doesn't. Year. And it's crazy because you got Lagasse. This will be his last year, right?
Yes.
So you got Lagasse in his last year. You've got Hillstead in his second year. Hillstead arguably played better at times than Lagasse, and then at the end of the season, Lagasse kind of played better than Hillstead, and they kind of flip flop going back and forth in games sometimes. And then Bryson Barnes did pretty well at a Power 5 team, and then he comes in. I could see him winning the job. I feel like it's a lot to put on a guy coming in with not any experience in that offense with that playbook, because I think there's something to be said about, when you come in, figuring out where your classes are, where do you got to eat, getting from place to place. I don't know how big Utah State's campus is, but I do think there's something about that. Obviously, strength and conditioning, won't be much different from what he's used to, but not knowing the terminology and all that stuff, I think it will be hard. So maybe it's a play for 2 years. Like, hey, you come in, maybe you're more, battling for that backup position, and if you play good enough, or anybody stinks it up, you might get in there. But kind of a future play, maybe. It's hard to know
Possibly.
in
Yeah.
this day and the age of NIL and this and that. So who knows if any of those guys are still there, but it's feasible.
They Utah State does return their top 3 running back options. Davin Booth, their leading rusher, 805 yards, 6 touchdowns last year. Rasul Faison, 736 yards, 5 touchdowns last season, and Robert Briggs Jr., 420 yards and 2 touchdowns last season. Looking at their receivers, I think last year kind of told us who was going to probably step into that Terrell Vaughn role, and I got to believe that's going to be Micah Davis. Micah Davis was their 3rd leading receiver last year, on caught 36 balls on 59 targets for 628 yards and 6 touchdowns. Who's going to step into his role? Colby Bowman returns, Brock Lane, Otto Tia. Brock Lane is a tight end, so probably not him. So I guess maybe Bowman or Otto Tia possibly could kind of be that 3rd receiver for Utah State. But I feel pretty comfortable in saying, obviously, Jalen Royals is wide receiver 1, but Micah Davis will kind of be that wide receiver 2. Still very valuable for fantasy purposes in this offense.
All right. Last-ish team for the
last true Mountain West team.
Out is Craig Bull. He retires. He just accepted a position. I don't know. It's like the ambassador of the NCAA or something like that, which I think is a good role for him. But something I think we talked about last year where it was kind of odd of the timing. Probably one of those things that the team knew before the end of the year that they just didn't talk about because they made the hire pretty quick. It wasn't like in what I would say like a due diligence of, we're going to scour the nation for the best
it was
coaches.
pretty fast.
If I remember right, it was like either within 2 days or like a couple hours. It was like somewhere in.
I thought it was like the same day, like later that same day.
It might have been. So new head coach Jay Savell. He was the DC since 2020. Before that, he was the DC at Wake Forest in 2017 and 2018. So that means you got a defensive-minded head coach. Play calling, that's probably what we're going to see, is from Jay Johnson. He is the new OC. He was a 2021 Broyles Award nominee at Michigan State. He was the OC from 2020 to 2023. And DC, Aaron Bull, the linebacker coach since 2020, and he's been a grad assistant since 2017. And yes, he is the son of Craig Bull, retired head coach. So he's been there for a while. So what does that mean for Jay Johnson and the OC coming to Wyoming. Wyoming historically, there in Laramie has been a run-heavy team, but his points per game at Michigan State over the last 4 years averages 22.5 points. So not anything too exciting. Passing attempts are 32.8 to rush attempts 32.9. So he's definitely a 50-50 type guy. The wide receiver ones in his offenses, from a fantasy standpoint, definitely not something you want to be part of. They average 13.75 points. Wide receiver 2, 13.04 points. They're going to get you wide receiver 1, 48 receptions, 700 yards, 5 to 6 touchdowns. Wide receiver 2 will be 37 receptions, 550 yards, and 4 to 5 touchdowns. So nothing crazy. At Michigan State, he's had a couple of quarterbacks. In 2020, he had 2 quarterbacks that split some time between Rocky Lombardi and Peyton Thorne, and then Caden Hauser this last year, Noah Kim split some time. But if you were to put those all together as one quarterback, the quarterbacks average just about 2,500 yards passing, 17 touchdowns, 11 INTs, 90 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. So that is good for 15.7 points per game in a 6-point passing touchdown league. Again, not something you kind of want a piece of. But then from a running standpoint, we talked about how they're pretty split 50-50. Well, the RB1 will get about 60% of that workload, while 20-ish percent is going to come back from the the running back 2. And then the rest of that 18 that's left is going to get split up against a smattering of guys. But RB1 is going to average 16 to 17 opportunities a game, while the RB2 is going to average 7 to 8. So you definitely want that RB1 in the regards of opportunity, because if you can get 20 opportunities a game, again, that's something you want to see. But we're in that 15 to 17 range here. That's going to get you about 13 to 15, 16 points per game. So nothing outlandish, but again, running back, typically you want that in Wyoming. Nothing really changes there. Yeah, running reception wise, they'll get about 1 to 2 receptions a game, and about 800 to 850 rushing yards for the season. So that's about all I got there for what we need to know about the new OC, Jay Johnson.
All right. Personnel wise, they lose quarterback Andrew Peasley. He's out of eligibility. Running back DQ James is in the portal. Wide receiver, their leading wide receiver, Wyatt Weiland, is out of eligibility. Their top tight end, Trayton Welch, is out of eligibility. Who's coming in? The only one of any kind of note would be wide receiver Tyler King, coming over from Texas Tech. Tyler King was someone I think a lot of people liked as a freshman. Thought maybe he could do something there at Texas Tech, but never materialized. And now he's over at Wyoming. I think basically like Luke said, it's going to be basically more of the same with a little bit better of a passing game, right? Play good defense, run the ball. They do return quarterback Evan Svoboda, much more of a passer, or a better passer, I should say, than Andrew Peasley. He did play in 9 games last year. 23 completions on 38 attempts, a 60.5 completion percentage, 200 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. He returns. He does not add really anything doesn't add much in the running game. He did have 25 attempts for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he's not like a complete zero there.
But that's pretty standard, I guess, with a quarterback in a Jay Johnson type offense. So that adds up.
Running backs, they return their leading running back, Harrison Whaley, who had 164 attempts, 947 yards, and 5 touchdowns last year. He did miss a few games due to injury. They also returned Sam Scott and Jamari Farrell. And I was when you were talking about the coaches stuff, I was trying to find out if DeWyan McNeely is returning. He got hurt preseason, and I did not find. And he hasn't posted anything on Twitter in quite some time. So I'm not sure if he is returning or not. But that could be someone to kind of keep an eye on. And I didn't look. I don't know if you have a chance, Luke, if you could look and see if they have a 2024 roster yet. Moving on to the receivers, like I said, they lose Wyatt Weiland, their leading receiver. Last season, he had 44 catches on 63 targets, 480 yards, and 5 touchdowns. They do return Ayer Asante, their second leading receiver. Last season, 21 catches on 41 targets, 372 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And they also returned tight end John Michael Gillenborg, who had 23 catches, 360 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Again, like Luke said, you're not really looking necessarily at the receivers here. But traditionally, their tight ends have produced for Wyoming, so that might be a position where you might look at in their passing game, and that would be John Michael Gillenborg. Offensive line, they only lose one offensive lineman, so nothing really too concerning there from that standpoint. Harrison Whaley's he's the shining star of the offense. If you're looking for a piece of the Wyoming offense, that's your guy, Harrison Whaley.
Didn't he tear it up against Texas too? Didn't he have a pretty good game? I think that was before he got hurt there.
Yeah, I think so. He missed like 2 or 3 games in the middle of the year.
Yep, he did. I do not see a updated roster there.
Yeah, it looks like 2023.
Wyoming.
Nope. And
who was it that you said you were curious about?
It was DeWyan McNeely.
McNeely, okay.
If he was returning or not. I was going to search Twitter real quick to see if I could see anything. And I'm trying to remember what his injury was, but I don't know. He graduated, so
yeah, it's probably done.
He did graduate with a degree in American Studies, so I suppose. I mean, he would still technically at least have a medical redshirt year, so it doesn't mean he can't return. But
right. Just gonna have to be like
he did graduate.
Just gonna have to be like Matt Leinart and do like dancing for his class or whatever, ballroom dancing, whatever he did back in 2007, or not 2007, but around that time, 2005. I don't know. It was a while ago.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps it up for our Mountain West originals, OGs, I guess. Oregon State, we decided to add, as well as Washington State, just so we could have them covered. So coaching changes out goes Jonathan Smith. He becomes the Michigan State head coach. He also takes his OC, Brian Lindgren, and in comes head coach Trent Bray. He was the Oregon State DC, so he's been there since 2018. He was also the interim head coach at Nebraska in 2017. So again, DC means, hey, probably who's calling plays is going to matter. OC Ryan Gunderson, he was the UCLA quarterback coach this last year, and he was the OC for San Jose State from 2017 to 2020. DC Keith Hayward, he was the Las Vegas Raiders defensive quality control coach for a couple weeks. I don't think he actually did anything yet, but then he was the DC at UNLV in 2022. He was the Cal outside linebacker coach in 2021, and 2018 to 2020 he was the co-DC at Oregon. So Ryan Gunderson did not go into depth like I did on the other ones, but just kind of an idea. 2017 he was the QB coach for San Jose State. And then he got the title of OC in 2018. So he was the QB coach in OC 2018, 2019, 2020. And his points per game were 23.9. I think it's to note in 2017 and 2018, he was 15.8 and 21.2 respectively, and then popped up to 30.1 and 28.6. So again, recruiting, I think, takes a little bit of time to get in when it's a new regime. And again, the passing is 36.7 attempts to rushing at 30.2. And again, in those 2019, 2020 seasons, those rushes per game were the lowest of the 4 years. And the passing was the highest in 2019. So definitely is going to want to throw the ball, in my opinion, for Oregon State, which isn't great for Damian Martinez, but I think he will get his. But yeah, I think they're going to want to chuck the ball around there at Oregon State. So who do we got leaving and who do we got coming, Justice?
So as you might imagine, with so many changes, there's quite a bit of losses here at Oregon State. Just from a returning production standpoint, they rank 130th out of the offense is 130th out of 134 teams. So they lose quite a bit. And real quick, we haven't done this yet, but shout out to Nicholas Ian Allen, CFB Winning Edge. I use his stuff a lot when I'm preparing for the shows. And if you're not a subscriber, I certainly encourage you to do so. Great information, great resource for college football, CFF, whatever you need there. But so they lose quarterback DJ U off to Florida State. Quarterback Aiden Childs follows Smith over to Michigan State. Running back Deshaun Fenwick out of eligibility. Wide receiver Silas Bolden is off to Texas. Wide receiver Anthony Gould out of eligibility. Tight end Jack Velling is off to Michigan State as well. They lose 5 of their top 6 pass catchers, their top 2 quarterbacks, and they lose 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen.
Ouch.
Who's coming in? They bring in quarterback Jabari Johnson coming over from Missouri, quarterback Giovanni McCoy coming over from Idaho. This guy returns, who he was at Oregon State previously, left, but Jimmy Griffin is coming back. This time he's coming from Ole Miss. Running back Anthony Hankerson's coming from Colorado. And wide receiver Darius Clemens, who a few years ago some people were excited for, is coming over from Michigan. As I mentioned, they bring in the 2 quarterbacks, Jabari Johnson and Giovanni McCoy. Ben Goldbrinson is a returning quarterback there for Oregon State. I believe Andrew Katz calls him Dr. Ben Goldbrinson. So he returns. But I gotta believe, I gotta give the nod to Giovanni McCoy.
Yeah, he's a pretty electric thrower.
Yeah, last season at Idaho, he completed 226 balls on 345 attempts, a 65.5% completion, 2,882 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. On the ground, he had on 87 attempts, 198 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, yeah, adds a little bit on the ground there. While we're talking about the ground, as Luke alluded to, Damian Martinez returns, their leading rusher last year. He had 1,185 yards on 194 attempts and 9 touchdowns. Got to envision that number going up, right? With I say that because in my mind was thinking, oh well, they're playing mostly Mountain West teams, step down in competition. But as I mentioned earlier, they got to replace a lot of offensive linemen, so maybe we temper those expectations a little bit.
Yep.
Receivers, their top returning receiver is Jimmy Valson III. He caught 11 balls on 12 targets, 154 yards, and 2 touchdowns. After that, then you're going to look at Jeremiah Noga, 8 receptions, 10 targets, 113 yards, and a touchdown. So, I got to imagine Darius Clemens is going to be a starter for them at receiver coming over from the Power 5. Maybe he'll have some fantasy value. Like I said, McCoy slinging around, new offensive coordinator there. Darius Clemens could easily be that wide receiver 1 for them.
All right, and our last team for tonight, Washington State Cougars. Coaching changes. Again, my favorite. There are no changes. We look forward to what Ben Arbuckle can do here in his second season in Pullman. Again, Arbuckle, I feel like, is not getting the recognition that he deserves. Kind of been overshadowed in that coaching tree, I believe. So, Justice, who's coming? Who's going?
They lose quarterback Cam Ward off to Miami of Florida. Quarterback Emmett Brown, we mentioned earlier, is off to San Jose State. Running back Jalen Jenkins off to Texas State. Running back Nakia Watson is out of eligibility. Wide receiver Lincoln Victor is out of eligibility. Wide receiver Isaiah Hamilton is out of eligibility. Wide receiver Orion Peters is off to Idaho. Wide receiver DT Sheffield, who kind of left midseason or early on in the season, is off to North Texas. And wide receiver Josh Kelly is off to Texas Tech.
Yeah, DT Sheffield leaving. That was like he had a great spring game, and then just like I don't know what happened there. That'll be interesting. When ESPN comes out with their 30 for 30 DT Sheffield here in a couple of years.
Who are they bringing in? Wide receiver Kyle Maxwell, Louisiana Tech. Wide receiver Trey Shackelford coming from Austin Peay. And wide receiver Chris Hudson from Oregon. They do have returning quarterback John Mateer, who did get some action last year as I believe he's a redshirt freshman. He was 13 for 17, 225 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception last season with a completion percentage of 76.5. Look for him to take over that starting role. There was a freshman quarterback last year. Quarterback, and I can't remember his name. He didn't get any playing time last year, but to the best of my knowledge, he also returns. But John Mateer, he's the man in terms of quarterback there for Washington State. Running backs, Dylan Payne is their leading returning rusher with 160 yards, 1 touchdown. They also return Javinci Schellenbacher, who had 146 yards, no touchdowns last year. Oh, let's see. Receivers, Kyle Williams returns. He had 85 targets, 61 catches, 842 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And true freshman last year, Carlos Hernandez returns, 24 catches on 32 targets, 258 yards. And then, the transfer in, Trey Shackelford as a true freshman last year at Austin Peay had 793 yards, 51 catches, and 6 touchdowns. And Kyle Maxwell for Louisiana Tech, he had 20 catches on 39 targets, 363 yards, and 2 touchdowns. You want in this offense, it's the inside receivers. Carlos Hernandez could be one of those inside receivers. I haven't looked. I need to look, kind of do some digging to see what Shackelford and Maxwell play. I believe Kyle Williams was primarily an outside receiver. But so Hernandez it's kind of weird. He kind of split. At one point, he was and early on, he was playing outside. Then, in the middle of the year, he played some slot, and towards the end of the year, he's kind of back to playing outside. So, not really sure where they're going to use Hernandez. Like I said, I'm not sure where Shackelford or Maxwell lined up last season for their respective teams, but definitely something to pay attention to, and especially in the spring, kind of see who's emerging at those inside receiver roles. Offensive line, they lose one of their starters from last year, so nothing too concerning there from offensive line perspective.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for our Mountain West Conference. Took us two go rounds to get everybody done, and I have a feeling the Sun Belt might be similar to that.
Yeah, we'll probably plan the same for the Sun Belt, split them in half, and do one half next week, and then the following week with the other half. So yeah, absolutely.
All right. So that's what we got coming up here for the next 2 weeks. Sun Belt coaching changes, transfers in and out of what we can find, and then whatever news and notes pop up as things come out. So
yeah,
thank
thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I want to say thanks everyone for the support. Please rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and for I guess another month and a half, Google Podcasts or YouTube. Please subscribe on YouTube. Like our videos. If you have any feedback, please send us a DM. Love to hear from you guys. Anything you want to hear, you want us to cover, let us know.
And that if you need to reach us, you can find us at G5 Hive on X. I am at Probasco Luke in Justice. Where can we find you?
At Justice_2318.
All right. Thanks.
Go!